Beloved children's show host Mr. Rogers passed away more than 20 years ago, leaving behind a legacy worth remembering.
For many people, the introduction to Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood is a precious childhood memory in and of itself. If you've ever watched the show growing up, the thought of Fred Rogers walking through that front door is enough to fill your heart with joy. Every young fan knew what came next. He'd hang up the jacket, put on a sweater, and switch out the loafers for sneakers, all while singing about how much he appreciated his viewers. As you may already know, Rogers' mother personally knitted his sweaters as a way of saying, "I love you."
My mother, as long as I could remember, made at least one sweater every month.
After she died, the show's staff purchased similar-looking sweaters and dyed them to keep the tradition going. The clothes didn't just have sentimental value, though. According to a 2014 post on fredrogers.org, this predictability offered a sense of security. Through your rituals and routines, you're offering that to children too. And since Rogers was remarkably thoughtful, he based his routine on what viewers might expect at home. Since the show originally aired late in the afternoon, right around the time parents typically returned home from work, Rogers switched from jackets to sweaters to signify that work time was over. Similarly, putting on sneakers was meant to create a more casual atmosphere. When you're hospitalized for any reason, having a friend in your corner can mean the world. For Beth Usher, that friend was Fred Rogers. In 2018, Usher shared her ordeal with Today as part of a tribute to Rogers. As a child, Usher suffered from a rare and debilitating disease called Rasmussen encephalitis, which was destroying her brain cells and causing up to 100 seizures per day. As a result, she frequently fell and hit her head on the floor. At the age of 5, she had to have half of her brain removed. Watching Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood brought Usher solace, so her mother contacted his assistant in the hopes of getting an autographed picture. Instead, Rogers called and spoke to young Usher for an hour. They discussed her fears and her favorite puppets on the show. After her operation, Usher fell into a weeks-long coma. Rogers, an ordained minister, prayed with Usher's mother over the phone and eventually flew from Pittsburgh to Baltimore to see Beth. He greeted the unconscious child with her favorite puppets. As she writes in her essay, "For the following hour, I was the star in his neighborhood." As Beth told the New York Post in 2018,
"I felt like I was touched by an angel when I met Mr. Rogers."
Their friendship would last a lifetime. In 1968, Mr. Rogers asked Francois Clemens to play the neighborhood policeman on his show. This was a significant casting choice for a number of reasons. As Clemens told the New York Post, "I came from the ghetto. I always thought of the police as being the most dangerous person in the neighborhood." In addition to facing the racial tensions of the time, Clemens had to grapple with being gay. In the 2018 documentary, Won't You Be My Neighbor, he says,
"Watching the show, they needed a black figure who would not let them down."
He goes on to explain, "If I came out as gay and there was some kind of scandal, that would not serve the race." Rogers learned Clemens was gay a few months after he was hired. Concerned about backlash from conservative viewers, he asked Clemens to remain closeted. Clemens complied and even married a woman, but these sacrifices didn't spoil his view of Rogers. As he explains,
"He became my surrogate father."
When Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated, Rogers personally picked up a distraught Clemens from his home out of concern for his safety. Clemens tells Variety, "I never had someone express that kind of deep sense of protection for me." Rogers' views evolved over time, and he later sought out openly gay guests on his show. In a 2018 Today interview, Fred Rogers' widow Joanne opened up about how her husband of nearly 51 years proposed. "He wrote me a letter. My last year at Florida State, he wrote me a letter proposing marriage." In the documentary Won't You Be My Neighbor, Fred Rogers' son Jim revealed how his dad vented his anger. Rather than shout or dole out spankings, he spoke in the voice of his often grumpy puppet creation, Lady Elaine Fairchild. And in regards to Daniel Striped Tiger, Joanne revealed,
"But I think Daniel was the real Fred."
In a 2015 article headlined Saint Fred, Atlantic contributor Jonathan Merritt wrote that, "If Protestants had saints, Mr. Rogers might already have been canonized." Speaking to Today in 2018, Won't You Be My Neighbor director Morgan Neville revealed that Fred wouldn't have wanted such high praise, at least according to his widow Joanne. As Neville puts it, "Joanne told me at the beginning, don't make Fred into a saint, because Fred's struggle was often against people who didn't take him seriously and understand the profundity of his message. Treating him like a saint keeps him two-dimensional. His mission was to tell us that we all struggle, and he doesn't exist on another plane." Mere months before Fred Rogers succumbed to stomach cancer, he recorded a short message for the adults who enjoyed his show when they were kids. It was the last recording he ever made at WQED Studios, where Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood was filmed.
I know how tough it is some days to look with hope and confidence on the months and years ahead.
He goes on to say, "I would like to tell you what I often told you when you were much younger. I like you just the way you are." He then thanks his grown-up fans for helping the children in their lives feel safe. The clip ends with Rogers doing what he always did best, making other people feel valued.
It's such a good feeling to know that we're lifelong friends.
In the documentary Won't You Be My Neighbor, Joanne reveals what Fred asked her on his deathbed.
He said, "Do you think I'm a sheep?"
Fred was likely referring to this passage in the Bible. When the Son of Man comes in his glory, he will separate the people one from another as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. He will put the sheep on his right and the goats on his left.
There was a little silence, and then I said, "Fred, if ever there was a sheep, you're one."
For much of his career, Mr. Rogers was in high demand as an interview subject, but he was also considered a rather tough person to interview. Why? Well, he was just so gosh darned nice.
You don't set out to be rich or famous. What you set out to do is to be helpful.
You see, the friendly and curious demeanor we saw in Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood wasn't an act. He was literally that friendly, on screen and off. That made him nearly impossible to interview because he'd often steer the conversation wildly off course while trying to befriend the person interviewing him. Getting Rogers to open up and talk about himself was exceptionally hard because he was always more interested in how his interviewer was doing. Rogers often had a profound effect on the people who interviewed him. He would end the conversation by telling the interviewer that he enjoyed meeting them and then give them a little photo album of the time they'd literally just spent together.
What I love to take are pictures of people's faces.
Rogers was even known to call up interviewers years after the fact just to see how they were doing. Do you love being able to record your favorite shows so you can watch them when it's convenient? If so, you should give thanks to Fred Rogers. He played a pivotal role in making that happen. When VCRs and Betamax broke onto the scene in 1984, a big selling point was that they could record live programming. Unfortunately, network execs freaked out. They felt that taping shows using this technology constituted copyright infringement. The ensuing lawsuit escalated all the way to the Supreme Court of the United States. Experts and witnesses were called to testify, and among them was Fred Rogers. While huge production studios and television networks duked it out over a perceived loss of proceeds, this public TV man, who comparatively made very little, said he had absolutely no objection to viewers recording episodes of his show. As he put it, "I just feel that anything that allows a person to be more active in the control of his or her life in a healthy way is important." Rogers' words definitely made an impact, and his testimony was considered instrumental in making the landmark decision. Ultimately, it was determined that taped recordings fall under fair use and that the manufacturers of those devices couldn't be held liable for copyright infringement. Well, this is a surprising one. When you think of Mr. Rogers, you probably imagine him wearing one of his favorite sweaters on a cozy couch somewhere reading a book. You probably don't picture him hunkering down to watch a spine-tingling zombie film. When the late director George A. Romero was just starting out, he was having a hard time finding someone willing to give him a chance, until he met Mr. Rogers, that is. Recognizing that the aspiring filmmaker needed some camera experience, Rogers offered him a job on the Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood crew.
Most of the people that are working professionals in media today from Pittsburgh worked for Fred. All of us started with Fred.
Fun fact, Michael Keaton was also a crew member on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood early on in his career. Anyway, it's one thing to give someone a job, but did Fred Rogers ever watch any of Romero's scary movies? The answer is yes. He reportedly watched Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead, and he apparently loved them both. When Romero asked what Rogers thought of his work, he reportedly said, "It's a lot of fun, George." Fred Rogers was born just outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, so it's not too surprising that residents would want to honor his memory. In 2016, a Change.org petition started circulating. The hope was to raise enough signatures to inspire the Allegheny County Airport Authority and the city of Pittsburgh to officially name their airport the Fred Rogers International Airport. The online document explained that Pittsburgh is still an active transit hub, and for many people, our airport will be their first experience in Pittsburgh. We wish to welcome everybody to our neighborhood. Unsurprisingly, 15,216 neighbors agreed. Bob Kurlick, Vice President of Media Relations for the Airport Authority, assured Pittsburgh Magazine that, We appreciate the interest in the airport and creative ideas from travelers, and we know that Fred Rogers occupies a special place in the hearts of Pittsburghers and people around the world. Because of that, Mr. Rogers is already part of the experience here. Sounds like a missed opportunity to us. Fred Rogers thought it was important to equip kids with the tools they'd need to navigate life's most difficult moments. He covered a wide range of topics on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, and he wasn't afraid to touch upon some of life's darker twists and turns. In one episode, Prince Tuesday runs away from home. People correctly assume it's because he just can't deal with his parents' constant fighting at home.
Oh, Prince Tuesday. Have you been here for a long time?
I've been here long enough.
The story arc lasts for several episodes, with people continuing to search for Prince Tuesday.
I guess you know we're looking for the prince.
Yes, I know. That's why I thought I'd come and help.
And once he's found, a classmate even tells him that she feared the worst.
I thought that you were lost and maybe far, far away, and maybe even dead.
Kids at home were probably worried about the same thing. Instead of skirting around the issue of death, Fred Rogers faced it head on. Throughout the show, he taught kids how to cope with difficult emotions like fear, shame, and anger. He understood that kids needed to learn how to live in the real world, and he taught them how to be open and brave and own their feelings. Fred Rogers was honored with many awards in his lifetime and was deservedly inducted into the Television Hall of Fame in 1999. In 2002, just a year before his death, he was presented the Presidential Medal of Freedom by President George W. Bush.
Fred Rogers has entertained and educated children for more than 30 years through his extraordinary public television program, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
David Newell played Mr. McFeely on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood and acted as an associate producer on the show. He once mentioned to Rogers that many children were terrified of the Wicked Witch of the West from The Wizard of Oz, portrayed by the late actress Margaret Hamilton. Newell proposed bringing her onto the show so that kids could see she was neither wicked nor a witch in real life. Rogers loved that idea. He immediately reached out to Hamilton, asking if she'd like to appear on the show to explain to children that the Wicked Witch was just a character she played in a movie. Hamilton accepted the offer without a moment's hesitation. In her 1975 appearance on the show, she even wore her old costume one last time.
It's very nice to see you.
Oh, that would be fun to be able to talk like that.
In 2003, generations of fans mourned Fred Rogers when he died from stomach cancer at the age of 74. And incredibly, the fine people at the International Astronomical Union found the perfect way to honor his memory. They named an asteroid after him. Discovered on March 21, 1993, the Mars-crossing asteroid, now known as 26858 Mr. Rogers, includes the following passage in its online description. Fred McFeely Rogers, 1928 to 2003, was a passionate advocate for children who taught that everyone is unique and deserving of love and respect just the way you are. For more than 30 years, he used his public television program Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood as a vehicle of service to the youngest members of the human family. After becoming an ordained minister in 1963, Fred Rogers gave up on living his life for the church and began pursuing a career in the arts. He was hired to make theme music for several shows on NBC, and he probably would have been quite comfortable living the rest of his life on that salary. But something about the job just didn't feel right to him. He reportedly felt that the network's reliance on ads and merchandise influenced the programming. He also felt like the things he was seeing on TV were contrary to his personal beliefs. He once said, "I saw people throwing pies at each other's faces, and that to me was such demeaning behavior. And if there's anything that bothers me, it's one person demeaning another. That really makes me mad." He decided to use that anger productively and left the job to focus on developing programs for children. He believed that television geared toward younger audiences should be free of advertising, and he believed programs should address real issues, teaching kids how to cope with everyday situations and emotions. He had to travel to Canada to get his first big break with the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. It was there he created Mr. Rogers, an early version of the show. Eventually, he moved back to the States, where Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood debuted on February 19, 1968. Back in 1969, PBS was struggling to get off the ground. The concept of public television was new, and people were skeptical of its worth. Fred Rogers appeared before the United States Senate Subcommittee on Communications and was directly questioned by Rhode Island Senator John Pastore, a man who was known for his gruffness.
I give an expression of care every day to each child to help him realize that he is unique.
After just over 6 minutes, Pastore admitted that he had goosebumps listening to Rogers speak about his show, and then he readily agreed to give PBS the requested funding.
I think it's wonderful. I think it's wonderful.
Looks like you just earned the $20 million.
Pastore was so enamored with Rogers, he even requested a copy of the show because he wanted to watch it himself. In one particularly powerful moment, Rogers explains that drama doesn't have to involve people bopping one another over the head. It can simply show how scary it can be for a kid to get a haircut.
I'm very much concerned, as I know you are, about what's being delivered to our children in this country.
True drama, he argued, could be as simple as watching two men work out their anger in a constructive way.
Above all, Mr. Rogers was about love, which he demonstrated in many ways. But there was one way in particular that was extremely unusual, by keeping his weight to an exact 143 pounds for his entire adult life. Why? Rogers, of course, showed compassion toward all living things, not just human beings. He was a strict vegetarian for reasons to do with animal welfare, and he also abstained from other vices like smoking, drinking, and sleeping in too late. Biography notes that he woke around 5:30 a.m. every day to pray, read the Bible, and swim laps before his workday began, because he was very weight conscious. According to the Fred Rogers Center, he was overweight as a child and suffered from asthma, factors which made him a target for his peers' bullying and teasing. But though that experience made him compassionate and empathetic towards the struggles of children, it wasn't what caused him to fixate on his weight as an adult. Instead, Rogers focused on keeping his weight at a steady 143 pounds because he believed that the number displayed a special pattern that corresponded to the word love. In 1998, he told Esquire, "The number 143 means I love you. It takes one letter to say I, and 4 letters to say love, and 3 letters to say you. 143. I love you. Isn't that wonderful?" And there was also an episode of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood in which he gave a special coded message to his speedy delivery man, Mr. McFeely. Just as McFeely was about to leave, Mr. Rogers gave him a note with the number 143 written on it and explained the symbolism.
143.
This is a kind of code that we've just found out about.
He told the kids watching, explaining things is another way of saying, I love you. And coming back to visit each day is yet another way. Oh, there's so many ways. You'll find them. You'll find them as you grow. Many ways to say 143. And when he talked about those ways, he sure meant it. Little did his television audience know that Mr. Rogers was so dedicated to living that I love you life that he didn't even sleep in or watch TV himself so that he could maintain that 143-pound figure to constantly tell the world he loved it. Mr. Rogers once said, "Imagine what our real neighbors would be like if each of us offered, as a matter of course, just one kind word to another person." His home state of Pennsylvania has taken that message to heart, and in 2019, Governor Tom Wolf declared May 23rd, the 143rd day of the year, to be Pennsylvania's first statewide day of kindness. Wolf announced the establishment of a 143 day in a tweet, saying, "As governor, I've met countless Pennsylvanians, and I know we're genuinely nice people. Join me in spreading love today and seeing just how far a little kindness can go." In a move that Mr. Rogers would call love, Wolf explained to his fellow Pennsylvanians how to celebrate 143 Day with a 3-step infographic. He invited his constituents to embrace Mr. Rogers' spirit of kindness, to perform acts of kindness for their neighbors, and to help spread the love on social media with the hashtag 143Day in PA. So while you may not weigh exactly 143 pounds, anyone can still spread Mr. Rogers' message of love and kindness next May 23rd, or better yet, every day of the year. As the Cardigan Man himself would say,
There are many ways to show and tell people that you love them.